Yvette and I, Sunday night, flew to this freezing cold city called Moline, Illinois, part of the Quad Cities on the other side of the Mississippi. Moline and Rock Island, Illinois, the home of Rock Island, which is an armory for the First Army, which is training grounds for the reserve. And across the Mississippi River is Bettendorf, Iowa, and Davenport, Iowa. My grandfather pastored there years ago, Thomas Milton and Lola Lorene Latta. Thomas was born with birthmarks on his face, was not an attractive man. He got saved. He never let it stop him. Pastored small churches all over the place, Mississippi, Arkansas, Moline, Illinois. He pastored in this place. It's still there today. His family lived on the second floor. The doorway on the right goes to a stairway that goes up to the second floor where he lived with his son, my dad, and 3 daughters, high school ages. The auditorium was the middle door, the left door between picture windows. You could look in and see the little auditorium. While a boy in that congregation, God called my dad to be a missionary to Africa. He just suddenly fell in love with the concept of him going to Africa, being a missionary. But before that happened, my dad, through a long series of events, eventually became the pastor of this congregation. At the time, they were meeting on a second floor above a bakery. You talk about going to church hungry. It's hard, right? Imagine us having a bakery below us and the aroma, not the fumes, the aroma coming up, just tormenting us. And while there, we moved into this house that's still there. At the time, it was much smaller. It was a 3-room house with a path. 3 rooms and a path. And over the years, it's had a couple additions to it, so now it's bigger. While living in this house, my father and the congregation built their first building. It was their first church building that they owned, his first church building to build. Is still there today. To my amazement, it looked like new. Another congregation was there. The congregation that had been meeting there outgrew it and built buildings elsewhere and sold it years ago. Now, this place began to be built in 1961, so it's almost 60 years old, but it looks brand new. While living in this house, the Lord prepared us for the mission field. We got the whooping cough, the measles, the mumps. I was the eldest of 4 kids. The 3-day measles. All sorts of stuff happened within the years that we were living there. And when we wound up to Africa, we had a couple bouts with malaria. That was it. And every place we lived at in Africa was much nicer than this place. So if you're in a tough place, God could be preparing you for the next place where you'll really be happy. So learn to be happy where you are. When we went to Africa as missionaries, my dad's cousin, Wayne Mitchell, I called him Uncle Wayne, became the pastor. The church was called Whole Truth Tabernacle. So Yvette and I this week after the funeral went by this place. It's now called the Glory of God Assembly. No one was there, walked around the place, just amazed at how good a shape it was in. Here's a cornerstone, 1946 when the church began, and sometime later is when my grandfather became the pastor, and 1961 is when they built the place. The next day we went by and got to see the place. It's like new inside. It was just amazing, and I got to meet the pastor, Pastor Kwame from Togo. Are you ready for your mind to be blown? It is home for the last year and a half to an African congregation in Moline, Illinois. Boom. Which means every church my dad ever built, and he built several over his lifetime, starting with this one, every church he ever built was ultimately for people of African descent. Amazing. So God's promises are never just for us. Moline Pentecostal Church built Whole Truth Tabernacle just for them. But ultimately it would be for where my father was called to serve, Africa.